Wow. Have you ever noticed, like, how many new temples are being built all over the place?
Yeah, it's kind of remarkable, isn't it?
It's incredible, right? I was looking at this map. It's actually from a talk we're going to be diving into today, and it's just got pins
Mm.
everywhere
Mm-hmm.
showing all the new temples. Like, for example, you take the Philippines. They only had one temple for over 25 years, and now we've got 11 more either being planned or under construction.
11. That's a big jump.
11. It's
Yeah.
mind-blowing. Right?
Yeah, it really makes you think, like, what's prompting this? What's going on?
Exactly. What's fueling this global temple building boom? Well, that's what we're going to be exploring today. We're doing a deep dive into a recent talk called Temples, Houses of the Lord Dotting the Earth.
Yeah, this is a big one.
And it's not just some random talk, right? This was given by a prominent religious leader, so it carries some serious weight.
Absolutely. The context here is really important. This isn't just some casual observation. This is coming from, a position of authority and influence. So when this leader speaks, people really listen.
For sure. And one of the things that jumped out at me was how the speaker connects this huge wave of temple building to, well, the idea of the last days.
Right.
Now, look, we're not here to get into a whole theological debate or anything like that,
Yeah.
but it's clear that this belief in the last days,
Yeah.
it's a major factor behind the message.
It's definitely a core part of their worldview, and it seems to be shaping how they're interpreting what's happening in the world today.
Definitely. And, it's fascinating how they link that belief to what's going on in society right now.
Yeah.
They talk about, social unrest, people becoming more and more self-centered, just this general sense of unease.
Yeah, feeling that things are kind of unraveling a bit.
Exactly. And let's be honest, it's not like that's a hard thing to believe these days, right?
Yeah, I mean, look around. It's pretty easy to find examples of that.
I mean, you've got everything going on. Social media, the political divides, climate change. It often feels like everything's a bit chaotic.
Totally. And for people who connect with that belief system, that chaos might feel like a confirmation, a sign that things are headed towards those last days, which could in turn create a real sense of urgency. Like, we need more temples and we need them now.
Yeah, like a spiritual call to action.
Exactly.
But here's the thing I find interesting, right? In the middle of all this talk about the future, about the last days, there's also this very human element to it all. Remember that story the speaker shared about the 95-year-old woman who decided to finally get baptized and go to the temple after waiting 70 years?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, it just reminds us that behind all of these big ideas and global trends, there are real people whose lives are being deeply affected by this.
It's like that sense of urgency, that desire to find something, I don't know, something solid and enduring. It's playing out on a global scale, but also on a very personal, individual level at the same time.
Right, like a shared human experience, but with these really different expressions of it. It's interesting, though, right? It's not just about, like, seeking comfort or solace. It's about finding strength, too.
Like, the speaker uses this really vivid image talking about temples as places where you go to, like, arm yourself, not with actual weapons or anything, obviously,
Right, yeah.
but with a different kind of power.
Okay, I like that. Like,
Yeah.
it's like mental and spiritual armor, right? You're going there to equip yourself.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
But what does that actually look like, in real life? Or what are people actually doing to gain that kind of strength?
That's the big question, isn't it? And I think for people of this faith, it comes down to tapping into the strength they believe comes from their beliefs, from feeling connected to something bigger than themselves.
It's like that story the speaker told about those teenagers in Heber City, I think it was. They were all fired up about this new temple they were getting, and they talked about how it would help them, like, stay clean and pure.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know, that really resonated with me. It's like, with all the stuff that young people have thrown at them these days,
Oh, totally.
the pressure, the temptations, all of it,
It's a lot.
they see the temple as this, I don't know, this kind of haven, a place to hold on to their values.
Absolutely. And it kind of gets to that idea of temples offering like a counter narrative to what they're seeing out in the world. Like, it's not just about escaping reality, right?
Right.
But it's about finding a different kind of reality, one that's rooted in faith and connection. And the speaker goes on to talk about, taking on Christ's name, receiving the Holy Ghost, having angels watching over you.
Okay, now that might sound a little, I don't know, maybe a little out there for some people.
Yeah.
So break it down for me. What's the practical takeaway?
That's a great question. Because, even if you don't necessarily buy into all of those specific beliefs, the underlying message is really about finding something, some source of strength guidance that helps you deal with life's challenges, you know?
Okay.
It's about believing that there's something beyond just the day-to-day grind that can give you a sense of peace, a sense of purpose.
And that's something I think we all crave, right?
Absolutely.
Whether we're religious or not. I mean, that longing for belonging, for purpose, for knowing that we're not alone in the universe, it's pretty universal.
Absolutely. And speaking of connection, this might be a good time to bring up that story about Eliezer Circe.
Oh, man, you mentioned it earlier.
That story, I don't know why, but it got under my skin.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a name, I don't know, Eliezer Circe. You don't hear that every day. It's definitely memorable,
Oh,
right?
it's something else.
But it's more than just a name, right? It's about this feeling of connection that transcended time and space.
Totally. So for those who haven't heard the story, the speaker's in the temple, and they get this unusual name, Eliezer Circe, for a temple ordinance. And ordinances, by the way, those are kind of like special ceremonies. They're done in temples, right? Like they're doing this ordinance. They get this name, Eliezer Circe, and it's like, okay, whatever. But then, and this is where it gets wild, the name pops up again later that same day.
No way! Out of the blue, just like that.
Out of nowhere. Just
Yeah.
totally random. And then get this, it happens again.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, now that's just spooky.
It's like, what are the chances, right?
Yeah, you gotta wonder.
So weird. But also, and maybe this is just me, but it's like, maybe it's not just a coincidence, you know?
You can kind of feel that shift in their tone when they're telling it, right? Like, hold on, universe, am I picking up what you're putting down here?
Exactly. Like, what am I missing? And what's really interesting is it happened while the speaker was doing those ordinances for the deceased. So for anyone listening who might not be familiar, this is a whole other aspect of going to temples in this faith. It's about connecting with your family history, honoring your ancestors.
Right, like a spiritual lineage.
And in this case, feeling like, whoa, I actually made contact with somebody from beyond, you know?
And it gets to the heart of what we were talking about earlier, right? About temples being more than just buildings, or like these portals to deeper connections.
Yeah.
Things we don't totally get, but we feel them, you know?
It's a-
Whether you call it divine intervention or just the power of human connection echoing through time, it's a powerful concept.
Totally. And it makes you think about all those invisible threads connecting us through generations. Even if we don't recognize every name, every face in our family tree, there's something kind of beautiful about that.
Yeah, like this grand tapestry, and we each have a thread in it.
It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, it all circles back to that question we started with. Why are there so many temples being built right now?
Right. Why not?
It's like all these things are coming together at once. Like you've got this growing faith, this desire for, I don't know, refuge, strength in a world that feels kind of crazy.
Totally.
And then this very human need to connect, to feel like our lives have purpose.
Yeah, and the speaker seems to be saying that temples are uniquely designed to meet all of those needs. They're havens, places of spiritual renewal, and even, and I love this phrase, they use the phrase, see the face of Christ.
Powerful imagery, right? Though, I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sure I get what it means. Literally see it. Like, is that metaphorical? What do you think?
Maybe that's the beauty of it, right? It's one of those phrases that's open to interpretation. It lets you find your own meaning. And honestly, that feels kind of central to this whole conversation. Whether or not you believe all the same things as the speaker, their message taps into something universal. The human search for meaning, for connection, for hope.
It really does. So as you go about your day today, maybe think about what gives you that strength, where you find connection, what helps you make sense of this crazy thing we call life. It might not be a temple, but it's something worth thinking about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. It's been a good one.